Think back to when you were a student. What was reading in school like for you? What did your teachers ask you to do? Did you have required reading? Maybe reading logs to fill out? Chapter summaries to write? Or book reports to present? Now picture this. A student walks into a library or a bookstore and chooses whatever book he or she wants. That same reader finds a cozy spot to read and slips into his or her book. He or she might read for hours. Friends may stop by and the reader will tell him or her about the book. Sometimes the friend has read the book too, and they share their favorite parts or parts that made them cry or scream or laugh out loud. Sometimes the friend hasn't read the book and the reader tells him or her more about the book, and that friend might grab a copy of the book to read too. Isn't this what we think of as reading? Then why do we force students to read certain books, demand that they write chapter summaries, tally their minutes to read, and put together formulaic book reports? Teachers can cultivate lifelong readers if we are familiar with current children's literature, provide students with time to read in school, and give students choice in their independent reading books. If we nourish students' motivation to read, in turn, we will impact students' reading abilities. As little as 5 minutes a day of silent reading over 20 weeks resulted in an additional 1-month growth in reading achievement. Volume in reading truly matters. Time spent reading is the best predictor of reading and writing achievement. Because we know that motivation is critical to developing comprehension skills, we need to provide reading instruction that fosters the will to read, that gets kids excited and motivated to want to read independently. Learners who lack input in decision-making feel powerless and demotivated. This is true for adults, for teachers, and for our students. Giving students choice in what they read is very motivating. When interviewed, middle school teachers agreed in their belief that making time for students to read self-selected books fostered positive attitudes about reading, which led to improved reading achievement. Numerous research studies prove that wide reading improves children's comprehension, background knowledge, vocabulary, fluency, and writing. Anyone who calls herself or himself a reader can tell you that it starts with encountering great books, heartfelt recommendations, and a community of readers who share this passion. It all starts with teachers as readers. It is imperative that teachers know and read current children's and young adult literature. Students need to see us as readers, and we need to be able to make recommendations to find great books for our students. Teachers should have a classroom library with a variety of genres in fiction and nonfiction. With a classroom library, students have access to books. Teachers can make recommendations to connect students with books as well. Teachers should be doing book talks or mini commercials for books every day. Students can also be asked to give book talks when they find a book they really enjoy and want to recommend. These should be short and share just enough about a book to get someone else excited to read it. Teachers can do read-alouds for the class to introduce books to students. While the teacher can do a whole class read-aloud, a teacher can also use a read-aloud of 1 or 2 chapters as a means of book talking a book. Students should be expected to always have a book with them and to take a book wherever they go. This expectation shows students to value all the time they can get for their reading. Students can read while waiting in line for lunch, waiting for the bus, or getting to get their pictures taken. When we grab any moment of time for reading, we spend more time reading books. Students should always have a book with them because they will need it for independent reading time every day. While it seems like we may not have time to spend just reading, we have to know that silent reading time is so much more than just reading. Even 5 minutes a day makes a big difference, but we should aim for 20 minutes of silent reading time every day. During silent reading time, teachers can confer with students about what they are reading. Discussing what we are reading with students and talking to them about their books is critical. This helps us see if they have a right fit book and if they are understanding what they are reading. We can celebrate reading with students, encourage them to read different or more difficult texts, and support them when they need it. Finally, teachers should give students time to read as a warm-up or as an activity to do when they are done with another task. Instead of worksheets or other busy work, students should be asked to warm up by reading or spend time reading when they are done. To conclude, the pathway to difficult reading begins with books they enjoy. Once they are reading, together we can reach for the challenging literature I want them to know. That was said by Penny Kittle. It truly is imperative that teachers read current children's literature, provide time for students to read in school, and that we give students choice in independent reading books in order to foster students' motivation to read and ultimately impact students' reading abilities. Teachers can cultivate lifelong readers. We don't have to make them do reading logs. We don't have to require them to read certain books. We don't have to ask them to write chapter summaries or do book reports. We simply have to ask them to read.